So I'm back. Hopefully you watch these back to back. So I talked about Pret-a-Porter and Kinky Boots because I watched that first and third today. Second and fourth today were two documentaries in this couture de cinema theme on Filmstruck. The first was Unzipped. It's directed by Douglas Keeve, who was at the time in a relationship with designer Isaac Mizrahi, who the film is about. However, okay, according to lore, they broke up after the film was made. Who knows what happened? Never make a film with your partner. That's what I've learned. This movie's mostly in black and white with some moments in color. It is hilarious and amazing, and it makes me love Isaac Mizrahi. And I think I'd have been way more into all the stuff he did on Project Runway, etc. if I had seen this first. I see why he's like a cult icon amongst men of a certain age now. He's so good in this and so sassy and so funny, and he references all these different classic movies that sort of inspire him. So the collection he's working on is inspired by Nanook of the North, and at the same time, I think it's Jean-Paul Gaultier is also working on a collection inspired by Nanook of the North, and that's hilarious and amazing, and also like kind of in poor taste in terms of cultural appropriation, but you know. So he references Nanook of the North, Call of the Wild, which is a Clark Gable movie, The Red Shoes, one of my all-time faves, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where he does an amazing Betty Davis impersonation, Valley of the Dolls, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. It's fantastic. Basically, it takes you through the inception of the collection, his fall 1994 collection, all the way through showing it at Bryant Park, and him having meltdowns, him talking to celebrities, him working on a dress for Eartha Kitt singing, him talking to Cindy Crawford, and several other designers, including Carla Bruni again, Helena Christensen, Faye Dunaway shows up at one point, Linda Evangelista. It's John Galliano who's doing the other Nanook of the North, not Gaultier. Apologies. There's a great moment where he's walking down the street with Sandra Barnhart, and someone stops him and starts talking to them, and then he's like, "Wait a minute, you're famous," and she's like, "Yeah." And is Isaac Mizrahi's like, "What about me?" He was so much fun to watch and see him be inspired and freak out, and then in the end have this sort of amazing, kind of inspired by Nanook of the North, but really all this weird, very bright 90s faux fur that was so in at the time, in that like bubblegum colors that were really popular in the mid 90s, before everything turned, dark. Good stuff. I enjoyed it. It's very quick too. It's like a 70-minute documentary, just boom, bam, boom. Really, really enjoyed it. Hilarious moments. Great, effervescent documentary about the creative process. The next documentary I watched is 2010's Le Mort Fou, which is about the relationship between Yves Saint-Laurent and Pierre Bergé. I said that wrong. Pierre Bergé. There we go. Obviously, Yves Saint-Laurent was the designer who came in with Dior, and then when Dior died, he took over Dior, and then when the owners of Dior fired him, he created Yves Saint Laurent, and then Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche became the house that sold, that made Pret-a-Porter, aka ready-to-wear clothes, a thing. He also brought Le Smoking, which is the hot lady tuxedo. Basically, he had the Mondrian dress. Like, he changed fashion. Like, Dior began the new look, and then from there, everything came with Dior, and the way fashion changed for women, and the way ready-to-wear became a thing that that people could aspire to, like working people could aspire to. Yves Saint Laurent is very inspirational filmmaker, designer for almost anybody who came after him. You'd be crazy to say you weren't inspired by him. And he was young when he started, and so that sort of caused a whole aspect of his life that he never got to be sort of a young, crazy 20-something, and that caused issues in his personal, professional, and romantic life with his partner Pierre Bergé, I practiced that, I promise. Pierre Bergé. So the film follows. It's not narrated, but the bulk of it is interviews with Bergé as he's preparing their art collection, for sale at Christie's after the death of Yves Saint-Laurent in 2008. And I remember when he died. He actually died almost exactly 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago, June 1st, I believe. And he died of brain cancer, which is just insane. And the two of them had not been living together for, 30 years at that point. But they had been together for 20 years prior to that. And they were still always together, sort of as business partners and on again, off again lovers till his death. And they had this huge collection of art. And so the documentary takes you through Yves Saint Laurent's career as seen by Bergé, and then mixing in how that career reflected the art that they bought, and how the art that they bought reflected the relationship that they had, and how the end of that relationship is now the end of this art collection. And it's really fascinating and a little bit heady. And there's interviews with other people who were large figures in Yves Saint Laurent's life, including Betty Cartou and Lulu de la Falaise. They're both kind of amazing women, and you should look them up. I thought this was a lovely documentary about the way in which iconic figures in artistry are often seen as lone creators, but there are always people behind them. And in the case of Unzipped, you saw Isaac Mizrahi's entire sort of staff working with him. And while you don't see Yves Saint Laurent's staff so much in this documentary, you see the strong man behind him, his rock in Bergé, and what it was like for Bergé to be a part of a life of this genius man. I put quotes on that, but yeah, he was a genius. And you usually see like the women behind these men because often they are heterosexual, but in this case, you have a homosexual relationship that still has that same sort of dynamic. But what I also liked about the film was that it showed that Bergé had a life beyond Yves Saint Laurent as well, and showed his work in gay rights and AIDS related charities and later in his life, and how his fame as part of the house of Yves Saint Laurent helped bring change in the gay community in France, and that was kind of an interesting aspect of the film as well. Bergé died last year, actually, and sort of fitting that now this documentary is here, although obviously this documentary is from 8 years ago. So, these were the films I watched, all about fashion. The theme on Filmstruck also includes Blow Up, which obviously is fantastic, and Bill Cunningham, New York. That is a documentary that is near and dear to my heart. If you have not seen Bill Cunningham, New York, you need to watch it immediately. It will bring a ray of sunshine into your life. But the other documentaries I watched for the first time today were Unzipped and L'Amour Fou. I enjoyed them both. I love fashion. I know I say this a lot, but if you ever want to chat about menswear or lady tuxedos, I'm always here on Twitter waiting to talk to people about obscure things that I love.